Hey, I believe we are live on this webinar. If you hop on, just leave a comment if you're not used to Zoom. There's a little chat bar, and if you want, let me know if you're hopping on live. I'm so pumped. Looks like Christine's on, Dean is on. I am so excited, guys, to talk about podcasting. I'm doing one last thing. I'm going to share this live in the Facebook group. So if you bear with me for just a second, we're going to get this rocking and rolling. If you hop on, comment your name, drop me your name and where you're watching from. Be super curious where we've got people from. I saw on the registrations, we had OTs, we had PTs. I think we even had a speech therapist. We had a nurse register. I'm so pumped that we've got so many people excited about it. Live webinar. I'm just filling out on Facebook real quick that we're going live for podcasting. Let's get this all set up. I'm so pumped. So excited. So we can get this. I've never done it both at the same time, so this will be cool to see how this goes. Looks like we're getting stuff rocking and rolling. Mia's on here. We got Evans on here. Let's see. Christine in Denver. Dean in Charleston. Dean, oh, is that the one and only Dean Voke? If Dean Voke is on here, I feel like a rock star. Chris Erickson just hopped on. So happy to have you guys on here. Getting stuff rocking and rolling. It looks like we've got things going on the Facebook group. I'm going to bounce back and forth as we go through this. I am so incredibly excited. Looks like Lauren is watching. Hopefully, Lauren, you can hear me. If you're watching this on Facebook, will you just comment on Facebook that you can hear me? Just say like, hey, this is my name and you can hear me, because I want to make sure that you guys can hear me. Aaron says, what's going on? Guys, I'm so excited. We're going to dive into how to get your podcast started. It is Dean. Oh my gosh, can't believe it's the one and only Dean Voke. Dean's like a celebrity to me in my world. If you don't know Dean Voke, you got to look him up. Man, I'm so pumped. I haven't done a webinar by myself in a while. And I got to be honest, I don't know what happened, but in the last month, I've had so many people ask me how to start a podcast. And I have an ebook. I've given it to people, and I realize people just like having visual instruction. So that's what I want to give you guys. Today is all about getting a visual instruction, step-by-step, how to start your first podcast. I want to dive in. We've got people on. Chris is on here. Christine, Evan, Kim, Mia is on here. Patricia's on here. Jeanette, Nicole, Marissa. Marissa, you can hear me? Awesome. So glad that you can hear me. All right, guys. I'm going to share my screen. If you're ready to get started, if you want to learn how to make a podcast, start a podcast, create a podcast, I want you to comment podcast. Just write in the chat, podcast. Also, how long have you been wanting to start a podcast? I feel like a lot of us, it's been in our mind for a long time, like, oh man, I really want to do this. I can't wait to get a podcast going. And we just haven't done it. It's one of those things that seems scary, which is part of the reason why I want to have this webinar today, to show you that you really don't need much. I got to add people to the group. I'm slacking. There are plenty of people asking to join the group. Dean says forever. Kim says podcast. She's ready. We've got, oh my gosh, I'm trying to keep up with how to do this. Marissa says podcast. Janine says podcast. Mike says podcast. Aaron says podcast. Nicole says podcast for almost a year. Carl says podcast. Patricia podcast since you met me. Oh my gosh, we got to get everybody on a podcast, because Jeanette says podcast. Because ultimately, we need to reach as many people as possible. If you're in a healthcare profession, I'm a physical therapist. I'm going to dive into a little bit about 5 minutes of my story. But I want to dive into why this is so important, because as healthcare professionals, we have to get the word out on who we can help. And whether that's your actual profession, whether it's connecting about health wellness or something else, getting your message out is so, so important. So I'm glad everyone's ready to go in. Mike says he's been ready for a year or two. Man, that's awesome. I am going to, let me see if I can pull up my slides. I'm going to share my screen. Chris Erickson says podcast. Let me pull up this presentation, which is not going to be as much of a presentation as your typical webinar. I'm not a real big webinar guy. Like, I love webinars, but I love to just show people what they need. So I'm going to share my screen. If you can see my screen, please comment, can see it. Just let me know that you can see this. It's how to start your first podcast. Let me know if you can hear this. We're going to dive in. I want to get rocking and rolling. I know it's 8:34. Dean says, got it. Mia says, can see it. I appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys. That way I don't feel like I'm left in the dark. If you guys have Q&As, if you have questions, I'm going to leave some time at the end. if something comes up that's super important, we'll address it. But otherwise, I want to get through this so you can see this. I'm recording this. You'll be able to watch this again if you need to, because we're going to go through some instructional stuff. Let's get this rocking and rolling. Okay, so this is how to start your first podcast and podcasting for healthcare providers. Everyone that's in here is more than likely a healthcare provider. I think we had 10, 12 people sign up through a Facebook ad that I ran who might not be PTs. The rest were probably PTs and OTs, so I'm really, really excited. So let's talk about what you're going to learn real quick in this webinar. We're going to talk about why start a podcast in 2019. What gear do you need to host a podcast, and is it going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars? Hint, hint, it's not. How do I record an episode? What do I do with the audio file once I record an episode? How do I get it out to the big players like iTunes and Spotify? How do you get it in front of more people? And then I've got a surprise for you if you want to stick around. Does that sound okay? Does that sound like the questions that you have had? Because I tried to take all the questions that people have asked, what has been bothering them. Can see it. I'm going to pull up Facebook from time to time just so I can see it. Those seem to be the most common questions, these questions that I get that keep people from moving forward. And so I wanted to write down, I've been tracking them, I've been writing down the questions so we can hammer these out. So any mysteries are gone, any weird thoughts about, I just can't do this. We're going to break it down because podcasting's changed my life, as you're going to hear about, and we're going to get yours started. So I want to tell you about my story. In case you haven't heard of me before, my name is Will Boyd. I'm a physical therapist. I've been out of school for 2 years, just over 2 years. I treated home health for a year and a half. Recently quit my job in the last 3 to 4 months to focus on building a marketing and media company with my business partner, Alex Ingard, called Healthy Funnel. And it all came from starting a podcast. And truthfully, I was sitting in PT school. I thought there was going to be so much more. I thought like I was going to learn magic with my hands. We got to the end of ortho, we got through neuro, and they were like, all right, those are the main things. And I was like, but I want more. I want more. Where's the more? And I didn't get it. And I remember asking a professor of mine what I should do if I have multiple job offers, and how do I negotiate? How do I negotiate my salary to leverage those offers? And they told me that I shouldn't be worrying about that as a PT student, that I shouldn't worry about negotiating a salary. I should go in, work my tail off and do that, which I think it's not bad advice. Like I would have gone and done that no matter what, but it wasn't the answer I was looking for, because what other industry would tell you not to leverage yourself if you're in demand? And so I had this moment. I had to go interview people. I had to go find people who had the answers that I didn't have. I was really frustrated. I thought about leaving school, and I remember our professor going, who here is ready to treat patients on day 1 out of school? And everyone in my class raised their hand except me. And my professor looked at me and goes, well, why are you here? And I said, I ask myself that every single day. And it wasn't because I didn't want to be a physical therapist, and it wasn't because I didn't want to help people. It's because I didn't see a future the way that I wanted to treat patients in the profession that I was walking into, in the system that I was walking into. So I decided to write a blog. If you've ever started a blog before, comment blog. This is so fascinating to me. I love doing this exercise. If you've ever started a blog before, comment blog, because I started a blog. It was called Menspire, menspire.com. It was meant to inspire young men who are going through a struggle like I was. Dean says you're the smartest person in the class. That was far from the truth, especially when it came to grades. But I started a blog. It was called Menspire. It was meant to inspire young men. And I did it for all of 2 weeks. And I realized writing took a lot of time, and I was pretty lazy. So I reached out to a friend of mine. I said, we should start a podcast. And my frustration just boiled over after that conversation with my professor. And I thought, okay, I'm too lazy to write this blog. I don't feel comfortable on video. The one thing that I can do is I could just talk. I could just talk on a microphone. I could do that if I knew how to do that. This led me down a path of learning everything that I know about podcasting. And I'm going to share with you every single thing I know. And it led to me starting the Nobody's podcast, which has dramatically changed my life. And I share the story because a podcast can change your life, any form of media. But a podcast I know personally can change your life because it's changed mine. This is my friend Eric and I on the left. If you're watching this, that was my original co-host. We started this. We were 2 grad students in our end of our second year of PT school. We recorded about 15 episodes before we added our friend Nick, who you see on the right. We did an episode every week, every Wednesday for 2 years, except for 4 weeks. But we also had 10 weeks or so where we had 2 episodes in a week. So I like to say that for 2 straight years, we did an episode every single Wednesday. That was a goal that I had set. I'd set that for at least a year, we'd do an episode every single week. I treated it like a baby, and it took off. We've done over 125 episodes. As of last week, I looked, we have over 116,000 downloads, which has been pretty incredible. That doesn't mean 116,000 people, but even if we take half of that, that's, gosh, close to 60,000 people that have been reached from recording a podcast, from talking into a little microphone and then putting it on iTunes and sharing it. It's been pretty incredible. If you've ever heard a Nobody's episode, comment, just write Nobody's. I know Mia's been a guest. I know some people watching this have been guests on our podcast. It has led to tons of opportunities that I'm going to talk about what it's led to and why you should be starting your podcast. Cozy said to Nobody's, Dean, no, that's all right, Dean. Hey man, Dean, I'm going to have you on at some point. We're going to have to talk about TMR. We're gonna have to talk about how you're treating sciatica patients from all over the world. Dean is doing some incredible stuff. You got to look up Dean Volk, V-O-L-K. Okay, so that led me down this path of podcasting, and this is a little humble brag moment. It's something I'm really proud of. It's the people that I've helped start their podcast, and this is just a small sample. But I host 2 other podcasts: the Breaking Student Debt podcast and the Healthy Funnel podcast with my business partner. We talk about student debt. And then the Healthy Funnel podcast, we talk about marketing. We dive all things digital marketing, online marketing related to healthcare. But what I'm most proud of is this screenshot here of people here are just a handful of the podcasts that I've helped start. I created an ebook and it got to these people. I've helped them, and doing the numbers, we're going to talk about this, but one of the cool things is my first paid job, not as a PT, but after getting my license, was being a consultant for a prosthetics and orthotics company, helping them start a podcast. And if Cozy's on here, which I think she is, she's heard it before. And it was one of the biggest amputee podcasts in the world before the host passed away, which was tragic. But it was really good. It was called Amp Life and then Revamp. They had to change the name. And the other cool thing is it actually led me to getting paid. I got paid at my home health job to start an internal podcast as an internal communications system for our company. I got paid a per visit rate to do that, which is pretty freaking cool, just learning these skills. All right, let's get into what you came for. That's a little bit of my story, but let's get into what you came for. Why podcasts in 2019? I personally believe it's the greatest networking hack of all time. And here's why it's the greatest networking hack. If you have a YouTube channel, if you have an Instagram account, if you have a Facebook group, if you have a Pinterest account, if you have a Twitter following, people know how many people are following you. So you might want to reach out to a Dean Volk of the world, the Kosys of the world. You might want to reach out to Tim Ferriss or, Sanjay Gupta, right? But if they see you have 500 followers, that might not be enough for them to want to say, ooh, I should definitely do a podcast interview or do a YouTube video with them, do a live stream with them, right? I got to know real quick, who is the number one person you would love to interview? Just go ahead and comment in the number one dream guest or one of your dream guests that you would love to interview on a podcast. If you had the chance to interview someone, who is someone you would love to interview? Dean is a man after my own heart. He says, Mr. Boyd. Dean, I think there's some much better people, cooler people, smarter people to have on as guests. But the beautiful thing about a podcast is no one knows how big your audience is. There's no place where you just boast your stats. There's no page to follow. So people don't really know what your following is, which is actually a really great thing when you're starting out because no one can say, you're too small. They just don't know. And most don't ask. And honestly, it is one of the greatest networking hacks of all time is getting into podcasting. So it's great for building your personal brand if you want to network with influential people locally or nationally, depending on your market, and business awareness. So how are you guys doing so far? We doing okay? How are you feeling about podcasting? Please tell me you're pumped about podcasting. If you're pumped about starting a podcast, go ahead and comment podcast. Ooh, Patricia says Mark Hyman, Jeanette, Dave Ramsey, Mike Zachabor. Oh, we can make that happen. Paul Urban Meyer. Guys, you would be amazed at how easy it is to get some of these people on your podcast. Patricia, I've had Twitter conversations with Mark Hyman. It's amazing. I'm going to talk at the end about ways that you can make this happen. David says Tom Brady. These people are out there and it's possible. So, all right, we've got comments. We're good. People are pumped. Kim says she's pumped. Anybody else pumped to start a podcast? Patricia says she's pumped. Andrea's ready. Janine. All right, let's do this thing. Cool. I got some good news for you. The number one question I get asked is, what equipment do I need to get started to start a podcast? If you had to take a guess, I'd love for you to write. I'd love for you to comment. Let me know. How much money do you think it costs to start a podcast? How much money do you think it costs to start a podcast? I'd love to know. Ballpark range, equipment, thinking of all the things that you need. How much money do you think it costs to start a podcast? How much money do you think it costs to start a podcast? However much to buy a lapel mic, Cozy, $20. Christine says your iPhone. Dean says 400-ish. $100. Andrea, $50. Awesome. Cool. So the beautiful thing is, if you have a phone, if you have your computer, if you have one of those two, it can literally cost you $0. You can do it for free. You can do it absolutely for free. You don't need much. You don't need much. Let's dive into the 3 things that you need to have. So when starting podcasts, you just need 3 things. You need hardware, which is your computer or your phone. I'm assuming everyone has a computer or a phone. If you don't have a computer or a phone, please tell me how you're watching this right now, because I need to know. I would be fascinated how you're watching this right now. I don't know, maybe there's some other thing. We won't count laptops, but if you have a computer or a phone, if you don't have one, you're watching this, I need to know what you're doing to watch this. Then we're gonna dive in to the other aspects that you need. I'm gonna walk you through everything that you need, including software and a microphone. And the beautiful thing is, all the software that you need is free. The microphone that you need, I don't even have a microphone attached to my computer right now. You can record just like this. Or I have recorded every Nobody's podcast using this microphone, the USB microphone, plugs in just like this for $20 on Amazon. $20 on Amazon. If you have $0 to $20, just comment me. If you have $0 to $20, comment me. If you don't, I'll Venmo you $0 to $20. Somewhere on the lower end range probably. But if you have $0 to $20, just comment me. Let me know that you have that, because that's all you need to start your podcast. That's all you need to start your podcast. Now, there are some things that if you want to get fancy and stuff, obviously you can buy a better microphone, you can get into that. But what I want you to know is that it can be $0 to $20 for all the equipment that you need. Let's dive in. Let's see if people on Facebook, if they're saying everybody's got $0 to $20. Whew, that's good. If someone didn't have $0 at all, I'd be worried. I don't know what we would do. Cool. So let's go into how to record your very first episode. If you have a Mac or PC, let me know which you have. Do you have a Mac or do you have a PC? Comment Mac. If you have a Mac, comment PC if you have Windows or PC. The beautiful thing is, whichever one that you have, there is a free software for both that you can record audio on. And the beautiful thing is, if you have a phone, both Apple and Android, any other phone, you can get an app that has a free voice recording app. And on iTunes or on Apple, I think it's called Voice Memo. On Windows, I think it's just called Voice Recorder. Free apps that you can just sit there and talk into your phone. Just, hey, this is Will. If you've listened to any of the Healthy Funnel podcasts, the first 10 are just me talking into my phone. That's it. Nothing crazy. But if you have GarageBand or Audacity, they're free. I'm going to show you a tutorial here real quick on how you can actually use both to record your very first episode. So let me walk you through. We've got Mia has a PC, Kim has a Mac, Cozy has a Mac, Dean has a PC. Let's see, we got tons of PC. Oh my gosh, GarageBand takes me back. Mac, David has both. Oh, David, man, you're killing it. You have both. That's awesome. Cool. So let's go through. If you have a PC, what I recommend starting out on is it's a program called Audacity. And all you have to do is in your internet browser, you're gonna go up and you're gonna type in Audacity. And when Audacity pops up, all you gotta do is go to Audacity here, click it, and it's an open source platform that you can download. And all you've gotta do is go to download, choose whether you're Windows or Mac, you download it, it pops up, and it's this little icon right here. I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna show you how simple this is to do this. So, for example, this is Audacity, and all you have to do is there's this giant red button right here, click it, and now it's gonna pick up all the sound when I'm talking to you, and this is how we record a podcast if we wanna talk into it ourselves. And I'll stop it. Here's what we'll do, we'll come back. Now it's gonna pick up all the sound when I'm talking to you, and this is how we record a podcast. Pretty simple. Now, I'm gonna show you brief micro tutorial on how to edit real quick, just so you have an idea. If I wanna delete a section, maybe it's blank, or I said, I literally just highlight over it and I click delete. And it stitches it right back together. It's amazing. There's all kinds of stuff, and I have tutorial videos on how to use Audacity. We'll go into that. If you want, we can talk about it later. But there's all kinds of cool stuff that you can do. You can highlight an area. Let's say you want this last little bit to fade out. It has all these cool effects. We just go up here, go to Effect, go to Fade Out. And if we play it, it's how we record a podcast if we want to talk into it ourselves. And it would fade out. That's how the sound would work. Does that seem simple? Comment simple if that seems simple. Comment simple. Like, I really hope that this is no like magic trick. There's nothing crazy. This is literally what you can be doing tomorrow to start recording your podcast episode. This is Audacity. Now there's different things. What you can do is you can also add in another file here, which could be sound, which could be music, right? So you could have stuff playing. Cozy says simple, Mia says simple, super simple, guys, right? Like if you can hit the red button and talk and just highlight areas that you want to delete, you can start editing your own podcast. And the better you get with your rhythm, the less I find myself even having to do that much. So this is Audacity. I highly recommend that you highly recommend that you dive into it and play around with it if you have a Windows or a PC to check it out. So that's Audacity. I'm going to exit out of Audacity. I don't want to save this. It's not worth keeping. If you have a Mac, let me show you GarageBand, which is super cool. I use GarageBand because I have a Mac. I've just grown up using it. So for me, it's the easiest. If someone sends me an episode, I do it. You're going to see a lot of crazy looking stuff on this. And by crazy, I mean, look, just 2 little audio files. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out, and it should pull up, hey, do you want to start a new track? And I use voice. And what we're going to do is you have these little sections here. And whichever one of these that is highlighted is where you're going to record. And if you hit this red button again, it's going to start recording everything that I'm saying. Now, the weird thing is right now on this, because I'm recording on Zoom, iTunes is really smart and it picks up that, oh no, I lied. Let me do this. Let me try this again. Nope, not picking up. So because I'm on Zoom recording and recording on this at the same time, it's not going to pick up. However, it's the exact same thing. You hit the red button, you'll start to see the sound waves come up. Just like if we pull up we won't save this. It will pull up just like the same way. And so you'll see it as it records here. You'll see the sound waves come in and you'll hear. Okay, that was a little different. That's music. An opportunity that Alex and I have for you guys. If you're out there, if you are a healthcare provider. And all that was recorded on this $20 microphone. Again, I just can't tell you how amazing it is to be able to do this. So what you can do in GarageBand is you can double click on this. And let's say you want to delete a section. You just highlight down here, click delete, and it's deleted. And if you want to drag it back together to stitch it, you just drag it and stitch. If you want to fade out sound, you can just click this button here, yellow, choose a little section, and it would fade out. Does that seem doable? I know that was really quick. That was really simple. But I wanted to, more than anything, show you how you can edit your episode really quickly. So for example, If you want to just start talking about Cozy, I know Cozy works with amputees. You just want to start working with amputees. You can just talk into your phone. You can talk into GarageBand. You can talk into Audacity, and it will record everything. And now you know the basic tricks. If you want deeper tutorials, I have them on my website. You can look at Audacity and GarageBand on how to do deeper editing. But ultimately, those are the only 3 skills you really need to know, which is, we're going to talk about it here. In fact, let me pull it up while I do this. In fact, real quick, does that seem simple? Does that seem simple enough to do? Let me check. How's everybody doing here? Simple. How about if you have 2 people hosting at different locations? Ooh, Janine, we're going to talk about that in a second. Mike says simple. Trini says simple. Danielle says simple. How would I transfer a Facebook Live? Ooh, Cozy, we're gonna talk about that closer to the end. Okay. So, Janine, just like you asked, how do we interview guests? The beautiful thing is, there are free softwares out there that allow us to interview guests. There's Zencastr, there's Skype, there's even something called Anchor, which you can use, and then there's Zoom. And I'm going to tell you what I use, what I love to use, which is Zoom. I'm hosting this webinar on Zoom right now. Any Facebook Live that you've ever seen me do in the group where I've shared my screen, I'm using Zoom. Almost every single podcast episode that I've ever recorded with a guest has been on Zoom. It's amazing. It's free. All you have to do is go to zoom.us, pull it up here, zoom.us, and I'll log in. And all you have to do is sign up for free. So I'm logged in, but you can go here, sign up for free. You can record for 40 minutes with someone for free. And when that time runs out, you just send them another link and you get 40 more minutes for free. It honestly blows my mind that Zoom is still free. It is probably the most game-changing software that I've ever owned in my life. Zoom is absolutely incredible. And the beautiful thing is, Cozy, Zoom is amazing. So the thing is, if you're talking about BeLive to stream on Facebook, you have to pay for the Zoom webinar program, which is, I think, $50 a month. So it's different. We're not talking, it's a little bit different setup that we're talking about. But Zoom, in terms of if you're ever going to do, if you're just going to host an online meeting with someone, or if you want to record a podcast, it is the most amazing software ever. I wish I could show you the details, but since I'm using this in here, it's hard for me to do, but I have tutorials on how to use Zoom as well. So I highly recommend Zoom. Some people I know like Skype, some use Zencastr. Honestly, if I could tell you anything, I would use Zoom, because what you can do is it'll pop up your video, it'll pop up your guest video. And when you hit record, it downloads both files for you, both the video file and the audio file. And all you've got to do is plug in the audio file. And how that works, I should have shown you guys, is, let me do this real quick, is in Audacity, if you want to take something that, let's say you recorded, let's see if I can do this. Let's see if I can find a podcast episode here. What you can do, both with this and Zoom, is, I got to move all my screens here and go find my podcast. All I have to do is take an episode here, and you can literally drag it right in. Okay, that didn't work on that one. Let me come back. Oh, I need to upgrade my Audacity. Apparently I haven't upgraded my Audacity. You can normally just drag it right in. I apologize that it's not updated. And the same thing with GarageBand. You can just take the audio file that you download from Zoom, and what you would do is you'll just take it and you drag it right here. It'll take a second since it's a big file, and it will plop in the audio file right here in here. Does that seem easy? If you download, so let's say you do a Zoom interview, it's going to record an MP3 at the end, and all you've got to do is find it in your folder and drag it right into GarageBand or drag it into Audacity. I did a bad job as a host and I didn't update my Audacity, so I apologize. I don't use Audacity that frequently, so I apologize on that one. Let me just X out of all my stuff. If that seems doable, just comment doable. I know that part probably seemed like one of the more difficult steps to do, but if that seems doable, just comment doable. let's go through here. We've got the 3 things. We walked through the 3 things that you need to do. That's clipping, stitching, and editing, and fading sound. I know that was quick, but do you feel like after watching seriously 3 minutes of all of that, do you feel like clipping, stitching, and fading sound is something that you could do tomorrow if you had to? If you could watch the 3-minute video that I just did, do you feel like you could do what I just did with clipping, stitching, fading sound? Just yes or no. Yes if you feel like you can do it. No if you're like, hey, Will, that was just way too much. Christine, you can definitely do it. Christine says, I hope so. Dean says yes. Cozy says yes. Guys, my whole point of this is I want everyone to be able to have their own podcast. Doable, 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 great. No trick. I just want everyone to have the ability to do this. The very next thing that we have to do is when you have this, all you have to do, let me open up GarageBand since that's what I use. I want to show you how to do this. And the same thing goes with Audacity. So let's say that we have recorded our track, right? So I did this. This has an intro that I made, and the intro is the same thing. I just talked over it and I added some music in. And the music part, I have an ebook that talks about all the free music sites that you can get music for free from to use for your podcast and how to overlay it. But let's say you're done. You did your recording, right? So we did this. We've got this whole thing. In fact, let's just do this real quick. Let's go through. Take 2 minutes. I can't do it on GarageBand. That's right. Let me add in a quick little. Let me go here. So if you have music, for example, in here, let's do something small. Here's a small podcast episode I did before. I'll just throw it in. Hey, welcome to another episode. This was literally one I just recorded in my phone. So it's all here. When you're done, all you have to do is go to share, export song to disk, and you could click desktop, and I do MP3, and it's gonna download this file as an MP3. While it's loading to do that, let me take you back. There are just a few more steps that we gotta go through to be able to finish this up. So the one area that you may want to spend a little bit of money, and by a little bit of money, I mean as little as like $5 to $10 a month, is on hosting your podcast. If you have a website, comment website. Go ahead and just let me know if you have a website now. If you have a website, you probably understand that your website is hosted somewhere. And by that, I mean, your website doesn't just float anywhere. There's actually a company out there that has a server, little box, right? Little box somewhere that the data in that has your website, which I know is kind of crazy to think about. But that is hosting your website. Podcasting is the same. Essentially, iTunes, Spotify, they don't want to have to actually house your physical file. They want that to be stored somewhere else. So in this case, we need to imagine a digital locker. Dean has a website, me has a website, Cozy has a website. You guys are awesome. You guys all have websites. Website. Patricia, Alicia, you guys are awesome. You guys all have websites. I love it. So this is the same concept. We have to do this. If you want to do this for free, completely for free, I highly recommend using Anchor. And all you have to do is Google Anchor Podcasting, and it's a free hosting site. It has some limitations, a little bit harder to get into certain, to broadcast it all over the internet, but it's completely free, and it's a great place to start if you want to get started. Then there's SoundCloud and there's Libsyn. SoundCloud is free up to a certain amount of space, and then you have to pay, I think, $15 a month. And then there's Libsyn, which is what I have used my entire podcasting career, and it's what I want to show you because honestly, I think it's the best way to go about it. It costs me, so we do over 5 hours of podcasting a month, and it costs us $15 a month to host all of that, right? And we don't even use like 3/4 of it. We could probably have like 8 hours of recordings on there for $15 a month. And what's amazing about it is it seamlessly integrates into iTunes and Spotify, and some of the bigger ones like Stitcher as well. So I'm going to show you Libsyn because I love it. I don't have an affiliate link or anything like that. It's just what I use, and it's what I know, and I think it is the best for what you can do. That being said, if you want to go completely free, Highly recommend trying Anchor podcasting or try SoundCloud as well. But Libsyn is my go-to. So let's go to, let me show you Libsyn. Libsyn is our hosting. And I believe plans, if you're just starting out, so let's say you want to have a podcast, 1 episode a month, or you want to have maybe 2 like 10-minute episodes a month. You can probably get by on the, let's see, $5 a month plan. Plans begin at $5 a month. Like I said, I do a ton of podcasting and I get by on either the $15 a month or the $20 a month plan. When you sign up, you're going to log in. I gotta figure out how to like close this chat thing. You're gonna log in. And I just wanna show you how simple this is. So you can see our stats here for the Nobody's podcast. It's been amazing. After 2.5 years, it's still rolling. We didn't even record an episode in all of December. We still had 2,000 downloads, which was wild. So when you get here, this is Libsyn. This is where we can see our stats. You can see all about your downloads, all kinds of stuff, but it's also where you connect your podcast to iTunes. So when you do this, what happens is you get a little thing called, let's see if I can find our little guy. You get this under your destinations. It's called an RSS feed. This is the link that ties your Libsyn or your podcast to iTunes, to Spotify, to whatever. So for example, this is like your key to get into iTunes, to get into Spotify, to get into Stitcher. And that might sound a little bit crazy, but I want to show you 2 things. I'm going to walk you through how to upload the episode that we just did, and I'm going to show you how to connect this to iTunes. So the very first thing is when you want to upload a new episode, you want to add file for download only. If you're still with me, just say with me, comment with me. I know we've been going in heavy on how this works, but just comment with me if you're still with me and you feel like this is making sense. Libsyn is awesome, Nate says. Yeah, everyone's with me. Okay, still with you. Good, awesome, great guys. I love it, I love it. Okay, oh, I can minimize this. So when you're here, what you're gonna do is you're gonna click upload. And what you're gonna do is find the file that we just did. So in this case, it's the one that I didn't give a title. It's called Untitled. So yours might have been, you know, whatever your first episode is, or intro episode, or interview with Ryan, or interview with Michelle, whatever it is. And all you got to do is hit enter. And it's going to upload onto Libsyn. We'll give it a second. We'll let it go through. I'm glad everyone's still with me. I should check Facebook, make sure everyone's still here with me. Awesome. Everyone's awesome. Glad, guys. Hopefully this is helpful so far. Hopefully you're able to follow, feel like this is doable. So we're in Libsyn. And what we're going to do is click Save as Draft. So I'm going to click Save as Draft. Then I'm going to come back to Content. Let me go down to Draft so I can find the draft that I just made. And I want to edit it. And this is where I can do all the things that I want to do to change it. So I can go to Details up here. Don't really change much on media, but Details. This is where I can give it a title. So say Interview with Ryan, for example, about stuff. And so this is the title that will show up on any platform that you put it on. And then you can leave a description here so you can describe the episode if you want to. You can leave links in there. This is, if you ever go to iTunes, this is what you would see on the description of the episode, is what you put in here. Now, Libsyn's recently added iTunes specific stuff, which is also why I like Libsyn. You can change the title specifically for iTunes. And if you have a season, you can add all the stuff. If you really get into it, we can talk about it. Not necessarily not mandatory that you know how to do this by any means. Very, very optional thing, but this is how you can do it. And this is where you can choose your categories of where you would add something. We'll talk about in a minute how you can add all your iTunes settings. So let's say we're good with that. And then we want to go to artwork, and then we can upload an image if you want. And we're going to talk about how you can make images. So let me go to We'll go with nobody's logo. And you can so have that. And then the next thing is you can schedule it. So then I can schedule my podcast. We can choose all the different places that we want it to go. I haven't connected this one to Spotify yet, but it's very simple. I've done it for a different podcast. And then if you want to change the date, you can go here to release date, set new release date, and you can change the day to whenever you want to release it. So let's say we want to release this March 6th at 9:30 a.m. You could do that. And then all you have to do is click publish. That's it. And then you wait until March 6th at 9:30 when it would be published. So before it gets published to iTunes or Spotify, we have to connect this account to Spotify, or to iTunes in this case. So what you have to do is, if you ever want to go to iTunes, you go to Podcast Connect. Podcast Connect. Change my seat here. Go to iTunes Connect on Apple Podcasts, and you're just going to click this iTunes Connect. Now, the one caveat is you have to have an iTunes account, but if you have a Windows or you have a Mac, you can download iTunes. If you have an iTunes account, just comment iTunes. Let me know if you have an iTunes account already, whether Windows or PC or Mac, or PC or Mac. Comment iTunes if you have an iTunes account, because that will make this part really simple for you. If you don't, you can go to iTunes, just Google iTunes, and you can download it for sure. You can download it for free, is what I meant to say. So you have to log in with your Apple ID, in this case, or your iTunes ID. And I'm gonna say, yep, remember me. It might give me a verification code. I gotta check. Hopefully not. Cool. And when you get here, I have all of this. Yours probably won't have anything. All you have to do, it'll have probably a big blue button. Or if you have something there, you can just click this big blue plus button. And now it says, hey, we need your RSS feed. And that's where we come back to our destinations. And we grab this little feed here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy that. I'm gonna come back to my Podcast Connect. I'm gonna paste. And when I do that, you'll see this big validate button happen here. So I'm gonna click validate. Now mine's probably gonna come up with an error because ours is already in here, because our podcast is already in here. But what will happen with yours is it will say validated, right? The only reason that it wouldn't be validated is that your podcast already exists, so this feed's already taken, which won't happen to you, or that you haven't published one episode yet. So you have to publish one episode. And by that, we would have done by clicking that publish button before. So once this happens, what it will say is validated, and then you just click submit. And when you click submit and it says your podcast has been submitted, all you have to do is wait anywhere from 12 hours to like 4 days, and your podcast will be live on iTunes. How cool is that? On a scale of 0 to 10, how difficult did that seem? 0 being not difficult, 10 being the most difficult thing ever. This is literally to get a podcast on iTunes, to have your own show on iTunes, to have your own show out to the world on iTunes. 0 to 10. On a scale of difficulty, 0 being not difficult at all, 10 being the most difficult thing ever. It's pretty amazing, guys. It's pretty amazing. And I know if this is fast, I've recorded this and I have tutorials on how to go through this again. For me, I just wanted to show you the power of how to get your first podcast started. That is how you take an audio file that you record on Audacity, GarageBand, or your phone. You upload it to GarageBand or Audacity. You click export as audio file. You upload it to Libsyn, and then you connect Libsyn to iTunes, and you have a podcast. And now you only have to do this step once. Every other time after this, all you have to do is just click publish. It automatically syncs to iTunes. And when you connect with Spotify, it will automatically connect with Spotify. Just see how everybody's doing. For not difficult at all, just need to see again. Do you need to link with every episode? Nope, not every episode. This is just once. All you got to do is once, which is amazing. It's amazing, amazing, amazing. And when you do that, I'll show you real quick. When you do that, here is what ends up happening. And one time with Spotify too, Nate. Yep, one time with Spotify. because then it's pulling from that feed. So if we go to two nobodies, Conan's got a crazy one here. And you click podcasts, this is what it looks like in your feed. And you have a podcast live on iTunes, which is just cool. I mean, how cool is it to have a show on iTunes? Like that's just pretty amazing, I think, in my mind. Guys, that is pretty much the flow of how to start a podcast. So I talked about uploading your episode and connecting on iTunes. And I got to ask, does this seem doable? I really hope so. I really hope this seems doable. Do you guys have questions? I know we flew through that fairly fast, but I want to recap. We had the big things that you have to do are download Audacity or GarageBand, click the record button, or use your phone. If you use your phone, you can just email the file to yourself, download it, and then put it into GarageBand or Audacity. All you've got to do then is edit it, which I showed you how to clip, delete, stitch, and fade out. Export that as an audio file, upload it to Libsyn, connect your Libsyn to iTunes, and you have a fully functioning podcast. If you're excited right now, if you're excited, like, dude, I could have a podcast. Like, if you feel like you can have a podcast, please comment, I can do this. Just write, I can do this, because I want you to have a podcast. I really, really want you to have a podcast. Have you had Spotify disconnect? Nate, I haven't had it disconnect in the past. If you feel like you can do this, you can do this. I am so pumped for you guys. I really, really hope that you're able to go out and start your own podcast. I just lost my Facebook thing. How do you get listeners? Ooh, Trini, how do you get listeners? That is amazing. Let's see. Woke up forward to leave Vegas though. How do you get listeners? I can do this. Everybody's saying they can do this. So how do you get listeners? So you have to share your content. You have to put it out on your social media. You have to put it on all kinds of stuff, put it out there. iTunes has its own SEO kind of thing that we can talk about. I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into that. The big thing is that you've got to be willing to put stuff out there. I want to show you one other thing real quick. If you've never seen canva.com before, you absolutely have to be on Canva. Whether or not, okay, if there's two things you take away from this webinar more than anything else, you need to use Zoom because Zoom's amazing. Number two, Canva is free and you should use it for so much of your social media stuff. It's literally free. You can go sign up right now and it has all these templates to use for stuff. And every podcast episode we've ever done, we use templates and we just repeat them and we use Canva over and over and over again. You can see Canva will pull up all these cool little templates that you have here. We'll take this, we'll put it on social media and we'll do that. It's exactly what we do over and over again. Cool. What do you feel like is the biggest challenge to getting this done? If you're watching this right now, there's a good chance you have access to YouTube. You could have looked at this before. You could have gone and tried to figure this out before. What do you feel like is the number one thing that would keep you from getting this done, from starting your own podcast, from getting it done? Kim says time. Time's her biggest challenge. Time can seem crazy. It can seem like it takes way too much time. I totally feel you, Kim. I will do it, says David. I love it. I love it. Cool. Well, I've got, Cozy says 4 kids. I've got an offer for you guys. So if you want, I'm starting something called the Podcast Launchpad, which is with me. It's going to be 4 weeks. We're going to go literally through scratch to launching your very first podcast, and not just launching, but having a plan for how to actually grow your podcast. So what you're going to get is every Monday, starting next Monday, we're going to have a 60-minute training. You don't have to be there live. It's going to be recorded, but this group is about accountability. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that if you don't have a kick in your butt, you're not going to do it. If time is an issue, you need people there to push you to get it done. So we're going to have a group, and we're going to go, and the goal is going to be 4 weeks from this upcoming Monday, we are going to have a massive launch of podcasts. Because for me, it's so much more than just starting a podcast. It's about networking. It's about getting out there. It's about spreading the word with our community. If you're a physical therapist right now, let's be honest, no one knows what physical therapy is. If you're nursing, how many people don't understand what nurses really do, or the people that we could connect with? And you have to get your voice out there and you have to be heard. And a podcast is one of the best ways to do that. It's the most passive form of taking in information, of taking in content. So we're gonna have a private Facebook community. We're gonna talk about growth strategies. I'm gonna walk you through every single thing that I've done to grow my podcast, which as of now, the people I've helped in my podcast, we've reached over 500,000 people through podcasting in the last 2.5 years. If you feel like you need accountability, if you feel like you need help, just comment help. If you feel like you need help, comment help. If you feel like having a group of people to go through this, to help with you, to make sure that someone's behind you, to make sure you get this done, just comment help. Mia says help. Nate says you've already helped me. That's awesome, Nate. If that's you, let's see. Ooh, Facebook just keeps going weird on me. Let's see. We've got, how much time does it take you per podcast? We've got, amen, time is the biggest challenge. Alicia says help. Awesome. It can take anywhere as long as you want. For me, it takes about 15 minutes to record an episode on my own. It takes me 5 minutes to edit it now, and it takes me 10 minutes to upload all of it. So it takes about a half an hour. If I have an interview, it takes me maybe 20 minutes longer than the interview, so an hour and 20 minutes. I'm gonna show you how to do it as streamlined as possible. If you're on here right now, if you're on the webinar, there's no crazy webinar pitch. I'm not gonna give you a value stack or anything crazy like that. I'm doing this because I love you guys, and I'm trying to think of what would be valuable for my time that would also get you guys everything that you need, so that way we can have everyone launching podcasts at the same time. I'm gonna post this down here. If you wanna join the podcast launchpad, which again is 4 weeks of me coaching you through step-by-step from scratch to launching your actual podcast, having it live, you not having to worry about it. I'm also gonna design, if you want, you can say no. I'm gonna design your very first social media post for your podcast. I'm gonna help, if you join the group, I'm gonna go through and walk you through your first social media post when you have your episode. So what's gonna happen 4 weeks from today, from next Monday, 4 weeks from next Monday, you will have at least 3 episodes already done. I'm gonna show you exactly how to do it. We're gonna do it together. I'm gonna show you exactly how to do this. And we're gonna have a group of people having their podcast launched at the same time. It's gonna be freaking amazing. So here's what I'm gonna do. It's gonna be 147. There's all kinds of bonuses. I could list off all of them if I really wanted to. Honestly, I just love you guys. If you followed me for a while, I'm pretty no BS fluff stuff. I just wanna help everyone. I'm gonna put it in the comments. If you guys wanna jump in on it, I would love to have you. If you feel like this is something that you've been wanting to do and you haven't done before, now's the time to jump in. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna paste this in here. If you want, I even have a little upsell there if you want, where I'll do a half an hour call with you where we'll just jump in exactly how the best way to grow your podcast, to get in front of the right people. Podcasting's changed my life, and I care about us as professionals, as healthcare professionals, as physical therapists like myself. We're just really struggling to get the word out on what we do. And to me, this has been one of the best ways to do that, one of the best ways to connect with people. So if you get in, what's gonna happen is you will jump in and you'll see on the thank you page, there's gonna be a private Facebook group. Starting tomorrow, I'm gonna start diving into what you want your podcast to be about. But then next Monday, we're gonna have our first training. We're gonna have our first training. We're gonna go in, we're gonna start with episode 1, everything that you need to do to have your podcast ready. And in 4 weeks from this upcoming Monday, we will have you with 3 episodes launched and ready to rock and roll for your podcast. So that's something you want. You have the link. Message me on Facebook, send me an email, whatever it is to get on there to do that. If you want to jump in, this is going to be up for till Sunday. So you have till Sunday to decide. Just message me. I'm not going to force you or push it on you. I'd love to have you if you feel like this is something you've wanted to do and feel like, you haven't had accountability to do it. This is my little way to get you in, to make sure that you do follow through, that you do have this. I can tell you for a fact that I have made at least 30 to 40 grand based off of what I've done through my podcast. I'm talking job interviews. I'm talking job offers. I got offered a residency position without ever even applying because I had a podcast, which still freaks me out, weirds me out to this day. I got offered marketing jobs right out of school because I knew how to do this. I got this job at my home health company where I got paid a per visit rate to help them do an internal podcast. This stuff can really change your life. And I'll put it this way. If you're a practitioner and you're a private practice owner, and I teach you how to create a podcast where you can go network with physicians in your area, right? Here's how you get a meeting with a physician. Side note here. One of the best ways to get a meeting with a physician in your local town, if you still want to do physician marketing, don't go ask them for lunch. Ask them if they want to be on your podcast and if you can share their mission and message with the town. I'm telling you right now, if you want to get referrals, if you want to try that, that is one of the best ways you can do it. Have them on your podcast, interview them. The rate of them saying yes to that over lunch with you, I don't know the number, but it's significantly higher. Significantly higher. So hope to see you guys in there. Hope this was helpful. If this webinar was helpful, just comment helpful. That will make me feel really good at the end of this, knowing that this was helpful. The replay will be up. I'm going to email the replay out. It'll be sitting here in the Facebook group. If you're in the Facebook group, Mia's is helpful. Cozy's is helpful. Nate, awesome guys. Thanks so much for that. I really, really appreciate it. Let me just check and see if there's any questions on Facebook. Looks like everybody's good. Guys, it's a blast. You know I care about you. I love you guys so much that I just want you guys to be able to blossom and do this and go do this. If you're not in healthcare digital marketing, our private Facebook group, you need to get into healthcare digital marketing, which will absolutely help you grow. I mean, we teach everything. We teach podcasting. We teach Facebook ads. We teach email marketing. We teach all this stuff. We teach all this stuff in there. If you feel like accountability is what's holding you back, if you feel like you need a kick in the butt, you want to join a cool group, jump in with us. If not, no worries. Go start your own podcast. Message me. Tell me how it goes. I'm just the biggest supporter of what it's done for me. I want everyone to be podcasting. Also, there are not enough podcasts in the world. I know that's a thing. Like people are like, oh, everyone's having a podcast now. There are so many more people that don't than do. So please start your podcast. Please start your podcast. Whether you join the group or not, just go start a podcast. Get out there, get your message out there. Go help people, serve the people who need you. All right, guys. Hope you guys have a great Monday night. I will catch you guys later. Hope you're doing awesome. If you want to see more stuff like this, jump in our Healthcare Digital Marketing Facebook group. You guys rock. Have an amazing, amazing evening.